Hey, welcome everybody. If it's Sunday night, it must be dead air. I am Ken DeCosta, your host tonight. You'll see I'm traveling light again tonight. George Lopez will not be joining us because he's working. It's Bike Week in Daytona, which apparently lasts 7 months. But in between chauffeuring people back and forth or whatever he's doing on there, he'll be popping into chat, I'm sure. So welcome to everyone tonight who is watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, and on KGRA Digital. So we've got a pretty exciting show tonight for you. Regardless, we have a friend of ours that we hadn't seen in a while, so we're going to reconnect tonight very shortly with him. But just let everybody know, hi, Steve, how you doing? You know, it's like, yeah, it's pop right in there. Hi, Ken. Hi, Ron. How's everybody in chat tonight? Glad you are joining us. So, I'm taking over tonight, so you know it's going to be pretty laid back, so it'll be all good. But I did not come empty-handed tonight in terms of a host. I have called upon and coerced another good friend of ours. She is the host of Night Vision at 11 p.m. Eastern on Fridays right here on KGRA. Will you please welcome in as our co-host tonight, the lovely, talented, and badass woman, Renee Barnett.
Hey, well, now I got to live up to it, though.
Oh, you have no problem with that. Renee, thank you for pinch hitting tonight. It's great for you to be here.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. So tell us a little bit, what's going on over there on the other side of the world, out in the great state of California, and what's going on with Night Vision? How are things over there?
Things are great with Night Vision. And if I could mention the upcoming show this week, I'm having on master astrologer and renowned art critic, if those two are compatible or not, Matt Gleason. And we're going to be sort of talking about the state of affairs in the world. We're going to be doing a little astrology analyzation on certain world leaders that might be coming into play right now, as well as countries, and including the United States. We did a little thing a few months ago on sort of the trajectory of the United States at that time. And so we'll do an update on that as well. So he's really good. He's great. And he's very funny. So he's a very entertaining guy, Matt Gleason. So
I have heard of Matt, and I'm sure that there's plenty to talk about on that.
You know what? He was on the Borden, the Lizzie Borden thing that we did together.
Yeah, probably a different night than when I was there.
So. Probably. He was on the Lizzie Borden murder house, and it was amazing, the analysis that he did on different people, including Lizzie Borden, and very revealing. It was very interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Well, what we're hoping tonight is we will see what Matt has to say. That should be interesting for sure. So that'll be this coming Friday.
11 p.m. Eastern.
Because there's a lot going on in the world, and as we did last week, and we will continue to do so, we all see the images hourly, if not nightly, of what's going on to a lot of innocent people. So sincerely, I know it's a cliche, we've said it before, thoughts and prayers and so forth. But, you know, it's horrible what families and innocent civilians are going through. And let's hope that a little bit of empathy and some cooler heads prevail. I'm not holding out any hope on that when we have madmen involved. But, you know, it's just something that we hate to see in the world. But what we're going to try to do at best is to give you a little bit of a diversion here for the next 2 hours and maybe take your mind off things a little bit.
Could I say one thing really quickly?
Sure.
For anyone that does want to help, a lot of you I see in the chat room know my historian on night vision and cohort, James Martin. And James has a very wide and sort of impressive background working in the government for the United Kingdom and working with international unions in a big group called Unite the Unions. And those people have gotten together and they are collecting, for listeners that are on that side of the pond, they're collecting goods and blankets and things. Now, I have heard that they kind of have an overabundance of those types of things at the moment. So, but if anybody wants to donate, that's about all we can do right now from the United States or from places outside the EU or on that side of the world anyway. If you wouldn't mind, if you want to know how you can donate and make sure that it's getting strictly to the people who need it that are coming across the border into Poland, if you could email Captain James Martin at gmail.com. And we're working with several different agencies. So in working, I had my doctor friend from Gdansk, Poland on Friday night, and he's coordinating things on that side. He's got friends that are working right there at the border crossing. So we'll make sure that things get right where they're supposed to go. And James can point you to a variety of agencies that you can donate to and the one you feel best about.
That's
Sorry
great.
about that.
And no,
thank you.
Do not apologize. I am glad you are here, if for no other reason for that, because all I was going to say is please go in and look around. But, you know, there are places that you can help out. But because you were
absolutely. And, and definitely keep
specific.
Those positive thoughts, going, positive thoughts and prayers. It's absolutely true. I believe in that as well. But also, little action doesn't help either.
Yeah,
I mean, doesn't hurt either. So, but if, people miss that address or something, maybe if you just contact Ken, he can forward that to me. If you get some emails or messages, Ken, about this, I'll be happy to forward them to the people that can do some good.
Okay. So if you are watching us on YouTube, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. If you'd like more information on that, we'll make sure that we get it to you. Want to get on to our guest tonight. As I said, I am reconnecting with this gentleman after about 10 years. We were joking before the show. The last time we were both together, we were laughing our ass off with a beer in our hand, but that's a longer story. But to give you a little bit of an idea of who he is, what he does before we bring him on, let's take a look at this.
My name is Dave Spinks, and I've been investigating the paranormal for 30 years. I investigate and research reports of hauntings, demons, monsters, UFOs, and more. I've even witnessed spirits manipulate my equipment. I've been attacked physically by unseen dark forces. Locations such as this that date back to the Civil War are where these entities reside. Join me and my crew on our journey into the supernatural. All right, show me something. Move this chandelier.
Thank you.
Wow. What the hell? There's that light again. Holy shit. That's freaking insane, man. The hair on the back of my neck standing up. I mean, it's freaking insane. Who was just in here? Yell your name out. Alright, that's it. That's enough of that shit.
Oh my God!
This gentleman is former law enforcement, former military, and one hell of a great American. Please welcome in our good friend, Mr. David Spinks. David, how are you tonight, buddy?
Hey guys, good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Hey, where were you in that clip? What is the name
Which
of that
one?
clip?
Those are a bunch of clips from various locations that
I just had a guy kind of throw together. Of course, there was some dramatic stuff with the Civil War guy in there, but because I do a lot of battlefields and stuff over the years, and he had to actually even film that during one of those reenactments, the Civil War reenactments. He's like, I want to throw that clip in there. I said, well, have at it, man. Go ahead. But
what is that particular building in that clip, that home or whatever you?
So that is an old place called Old Sulphur Springs, and what that was one of those. Yeah, so it's one of those places where the real rich people back in the day went for their healing. They thought the salt baths would cure anything from TB to whatever, the mineral baths, and they come right out of the ground, and the rich folks would come from all over the place. And back in those days, it was Virginia, then it still wasn't West Virginia. So they would travel, and the place is super haunted. I've done numerous investigations there, but unfortunately, a big flood happened and took a lot of the floor out of the place. It's a beautiful, beautiful building, and it's just a shame that it's really no longer investigatable at this time until the owner now, she's up in her 80s, and she doesn't have a lot of money to refurbish it and whatnot. And I think she really don't care at this point. So, she just had enough. And that was one of those places I was lucky enough to discover, and I was able to actually do a lot of investigations there. And what you saw in some of those clips were some of the high points of some of those investigations with the thermal image on the bed. That was insane. You could see where something was laying on the bed, and it was none of us. I mean, and then, when you do those, that was just kind of like a promo clip for my old YouTube channel, which I don't do as much on anymore, just because I'm too busy to do YouTube stuff. But every now and then I'll get out and do some live investigations on my YouTube and stuff like that when I have time. But I've been so busy over the last several years, I really haven't done much on YouTube.
Well, I feel like every once in a while, Dave pops up somewhere, whether it's These Woods Are Haunted or Paranormal 911 or any one of a number of these shows. And I'm just kind of like, when you're sitting there watching them, you're just kind of like, I know that guy. But
bonus, some of those shows I've been on, those are just, I started writing books at the behest of people like Johnny. He's like, dude, you got to get your cases and books and your experiences. So I started doing that, and I'm no means a writer, let me tell you, by no means, but I'm learning, and people are really enjoying the books. And that's how sometimes the TV folks, they get a hold of those books or those stories, and next thing you know, you're sharing your experience on a show. TV's just a bonus. I don't do it for that. It's fun, all that. But let me tell you something. They twist stuff around. They add stuff that didn't happen, and it really pisses me off.
No, they wouldn't be that.
So, so I often, when I'm at conferences speaking about this stuff, I always tell folks, you seen this show? And they're like, yeah. And then I said, remember this part? And they're like, yeah. I said, it didn't happen. They're like,
that didn't happen.
Yeah. And they're like, they can't believe it. So, to me, it's very important to share that with the general public, because they got to understand these shows, the producers don't care if they add, or the networks, they're going to add stuff. The production company,
networks,
and they try to make it scarier when they don't need to. Just tell the real deal. But that's happened to me on a couple of different shows I've been on, and it's really aggravating. But what people don't realize is once you sign on that dotted line, they can do anything they want. And there's nothing you can do about it. So it's frustrating, but it is what it is. It's entertainment.
It's absolutely true, though. I mean, I come from a background. I'm a veteran television producer, and I can't tell you how many times that, we were working on something and I was excited because it was a real story. And then they go, oh, that guy would be a good villain. And I go, but he's not the villain. And they go, oh yeah, but he looks like a villain. Let's make him the bad one. And I go like, I can't do that. I promised him, we would not attack him. It was just ridiculous. And they would do everything except say, go make it happen, whatever it is, So it's a very difficult, it's really very different than it used to be, because there did used to be some artistic freedom with the producers and the creative people. But now it's just down to the bottom line, dollar bill. And
well, I just tell folks they want the whole and complete real story, read my book, and
yeah, absolutely.
It's that's how it really went down. Well, I've turned down a couple. I've had contract in hand for my own show 2 or 3 times now, and I just will not fake anything. And they said, you know, and they'll tell you, if you don't get nothing, we might have to manufacture something. I said, well, I don't do that, so sayonara.
Yeah.
It's not about that to me. It's not about the money. It's about trying to document real paranormal evidence and helping people. Number one, first and foremost, is helping people that are experiencing negative type hauntings in their homes or place of business or whatever
Yeah.
the case may be. And, you know, I've done so many cases and stuff over the years that no one will ever see. No one will see the evidence we got, what happened, what transpired, because, you know, you don't disclose some of those things to the public. You just don't. It's client privilege, and you're there to help people. So, you know, the other stuff is trying to show people, hey, I was at this place and I documented this. Look what happened, you know. And that's some of the clips I've shown you all, you know, that we'll show tonight on this show.
Well, one of the things, let's
I'm sorry,
get
Ken,
right
could I
Yeah,
could
go
I
ahead.
ask one quick question from that first clip? When you said, if somebody's here, move this chandelier, and then something happened and you went,
Yeah.
whoa, what was that? What happened?
So we were at this place in Indiana called the Hamilton House, which is no longer investigatable either, unfortunately, but super haunted place. And we were in the second floor, and they had this big dining area. It had been converted from it'd been so many different things over the years, but it was now a restaurant. And this guy that used to own it called us in, and I was there with a couple people, and they talked about how this big, beautiful chandelier that was above our head, you really can't see it in that shot, but it would shake and move on its own. So I asked it to please do that. You know, can you do something, move the chandelier? So behind us, I had a camera rig sitting there. It was totally turned off, nothing running. And you heard that pop. It sounded like when you were there in there, it sounded like a 22 going off. That's how loud it was. That's why we jumped out of our
Oh
spot.
my God.
And we jumped up. We couldn't figure out what caused that noise. We're looking around. And then one of the girls there, Nikki Paranormal, was there with me that time. She said she kept smelling a burning smell. So we're looking around. None of the lights blew out or nothing. And then we got drawn over to that camera rig, and I saw a little bit of smoke coming out of the battery compartment. So I opened it up, and a AA battery had physically exploded in there, and there was acid pouring out of it. I've never seen that in my life. I've never seen a AA battery do that. And I talked to many, many people, you know, and the wild thing is it happened on command. When I said, show me something, do something.
Yes.
Pow! And I show it in that clip, in another clip of that. Like, I show it up close, you can see the acid pouring out of the battery. It's insane. So, you know, coincidental perhaps, but when you ask something to do something, show you something, and it does, you know, make up your own mind. That's all I can tell you.
Careful what you wish
Wow,
for.
that was
While
wild.
we're talking a little bit about those books, let's get them up here right now. These are some of the things David has done. And
yeah, I got a few more than that now too.
Yeah. Okay. Here you got another couple.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you got them.
Yeah, real West Virginia, and
very cool.
And where can everybody grab those, Dave?
They're all on Amazon. You can also get them at my new store, Dave Spinks World of Weird, here in Richwood, West Virginia. I have a new store that features everything paranormal you can think of. So my books included.
Is it online? Your store?
Not sales, but yeah, you can go to my website and see pictures of the storefront. And I'm partners with my girlfriend, Serenity Jenny, who is a holistic healer. And she has a whole nother side to the store where she does Reiki and all kinds of fun stuff. She does readings for folks. And it's kind of like something I've never seen before, something we're doing with all this. So it's a lot of fun. We're helping people. She's healing people. We're investigating. You know, we do investigations, clearing homes, the whole 9 yards. So, and I'll be running ghost, you know, walks out of there in the town. I'll be doing hunts, Bigfoot hunts into the Mon, because the reason I put it there was, one, to help the town. Two, it's right on the edge of the Monongahela where a ton of Bigfoot sightings and other strange things and phenomena are reported. And it's literally a mile down the street from my store. So there's a lot of things I can do with that. And I get, you know, people are constantly coming in, giving me experiences and saying, hey, I got this going on in my house. Can you come check it out? So it's, you know, it's kind of like my office away from home office, you know, so it's a lot of fun. And it's something I've wanted to do for several years. And now it's come to fruition, and it's really far exceeding my expectations. We're doing a huge West Virginia Monster Con there this weekend. The whole town's behind it. The restaurants are making like specialty meals, and We got speakers coming in from all around, West Virginia and surrounding states, and people coming from 9 states that have bought tickets for this thing. And this is the first one. This is kind of like our grand opening week. So it's exciting. And we do this when we go to conferences and speak anyway, but this is a much grander scale. You know what I mean? So, it's super exciting.
Wonderful.
And, so.
Well, speaking of meals, another one of my favorites here by Dave, the Cooking with Cryptids cookbook.
Yes.
I want a Bigfoot burger.
Yes. So that was a fun project one day. I just came up with this. I love to cook and I love to eat, of course. So I said, I've never seen anything like this out there. I said, I'm going to make a monster cookbook. And then I got my friend Lyle Blackburn involved, who came up with this. He's had this monster sauce out, this hot sauce out for some time.
Oh, wow.
So I said, why not do some recipes with that incorporated in it? And we got it on the book cover. You can see it. It's in cartoon form. And we did the cover and the book like a comic book for fun, and put all the monsters, some of the most notorious cryptids out there. And then we also have a classically trained chef involved in the book too. And several other folks' recipes in there. So it was a lot of fun, and it's done so well and people love it so much that we're going to do Cooking with Aliens next, and then Cooking with Spirits after that one. So, why not? You don't always have to be serious and the stuff. You got to have some fun with it, and the way I did the book is I gave everyone, we all have our home recipes that we grew up on and everything. So I gave them all monster names, and I tell a little bit about that monster, that cryptid, and then they have the recipe. So it's kind of a fun book. And we actually did 2 versions of it. We did like a special edition where it's the old spiral ring, like the old cookbooks used to be, and it's waxy.
Yes.
Like the pages are waxy, so if you get them wet, it doesn't hurt them. So we did that one, and then we did a regular book for them. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun, something different, for a change, and it doesn't always have to be serious, crazy stuff going on.
It makes me crazy. I think
funny.
humor is something that's underrated in our field as far as what we do.
Oh,
Humor and interacting with people. And we are going to get into cryptids. I want to put you two guys together a little bit because Renee has got a little bit of background in cryptids. But I wanted to start off tonight because one of the things I really wanted to get into, and the first time that I was made aware of this was an episode of the Unexplained you were on, Dave.
Yeah.
And this place is called Willows Weep. I'm going to put a couple of pictures of the place up there. And there's an aerial shot, a drone shot of this. And you take a look at that design of the house. And
wow. That's kind
so
of
I want to
interesting,
ask you a
isn't it?
little bit about this, Dave, as far as, what brought you to this particular location. And obviously what kept you there, because my understanding is you are the owner now.
Yes, I am.
So give us a little background on Willows Weep, because suddenly it's come into everybody's consciousness now as far as this place existing. So it is where to begin
It's in a
with?
little teeny tiny town in Indiana called Cayuga. And there's like one stoplight in the town, kind of like where I live now, which I love. I love small town USA. But cornfields everywhere out there, and then boom, there's this little teeny tiny town, and it's in that town. I came about knowing about the house like we all do when we hear about these haunted locations through the grapevine, the paranormal grapevine. Man, I went to this place. You got to go check it out. It's crazy. It's insane. And next thing you know, I end up there. I had investigated it 3 or 4 times and kind of became, kind of close friends with the former owner Brenda. And she filled me in on a lot of the house's history and what transpired there with her. She ended up buying it for her son. She was looking for a house for her son to help him get started in life, a little starter house, something he could do. And she still says she doesn't even know how she ended up in this little town and found that house. It was just like it was meant to happen. But according to her, all kinds of crazy things transpired when they were trying to remodel the house. They, literally, we could spend 3 or 4 shows talking about this. There's so many layers to this house. Mm-hmm. But it was built in the 1890s. I found out much later after I owned it, it was built. I saw Masonic symbology in the house around the door frames and everything, but I didn't realize the extent of it until a 33rd degree Mason or 32nd or 33rd degree Mason came in the house to investigate it with a team, and he filled me in on it more. He's like, dude, you realize this thing is insanely marked with Masonic, symbolism and stuff. And I said, I knew there was some in there, but I didn't realize what you're telling me. But like on all the door frames, there's the temples of Solomon, but they're turned a certain way, so non-Masonic members wouldn't really recognize them and all this thing. So we basically found out it was built by a Mason for a Mason. And the original owner, was a Mason and everything. But what's weird about it is it's not listed under anything, and it's built in the shape of a cross, which is very, very bizarre. You saw that from the aerial shot. And the side porch overhang was added many years later, like in the 50s. So this house at one time had 4 entrances and exits, but they were only, okay, so here, watch my fingers, like here's the shape of a cross, right? Like this. And in the corners of that cross were the entrances and exits of this house.
Wow.
Also in the house plans, there's supposed to be a staircase. There's an upstairs, but there's no way to access it. There's no staircase in the house. The only way to access the upstairs, there's only one window in the upstairs. You have to pull the entire window frame out of the house to access that. Why? We don't know why. We still don't know why.
Whoa.
So there's numerous deaths in the house. There's rumor of some other deaths that we can't confirm because the records in that county are a flopping mess. And I mean, it's really hard to find out any information on who exactly lived there because I think it was rented out for many years and there's no really records, but some of the neighbors had told Brenda and she forwarded that information to me. But there's numerous deaths in the house. The original owner died in the house. His wife died in the house. One of the sons died in the house. The final owner before Brenda owned it, he shot himself in the house, and then his wife OD'd in the house. Now there's some controversy.
Oh my gosh.
There's a controversy out there, according to the family. They say the mom didn't die in the house, but I have eyewitnesses that said they saw them wheel her out and she was covered. They were not working on her. So the family doesn't like that aspect of it and this and that, the former family from years and years ago. But the truth is, we all know in some states you're not pronounced legally dead until a doctor says you are. So she could have been dead, DOA, and then the doctor said she was dead at the hospital. So whatever it may be, there's a lot of tragedy in this house. There's also witchcraft ties to this house. Underneath the house, there is a fire pit, just like you would see outside at a campsite. There are rocks surrounding it, and there's ashes in it. And mind you, the crawl space is barely big enough for me to get in there. I'm a pretty big guy, and I had to belly crawl through most of it to get down in there just to confirm the reports of this. So, yeah, it's in there. Now, who in the heck would be having a fire pit underneath their house unless they were doing some weird stuff, right? Also, when Brenda was remodeling the house, they had put a new laminate floor over the original floor, and it was all hooved up from moisture, right? Had gotten in there. So they had to dig all that out. And when they did, in the corner of one room, they found a book. It's more like a pamphlet. It's not really a book, but it has an upside down pentagram on it on fire. And it says on it, "Is the spirit world real?" Now, I did some research into this book. This pamphlet was published in the 1980s. And it's supposedly by the Church of God. Now, I did some digging on this particular sect of this Church of God, and it's more like a cult. They talk about necromancy. They talk about how to summon demons, all kinds of stuff that I've never heard of a Christian organization publishing anything like this in my life. Maybe you have, Ken. I haven't. I mean, they're basically advertising how to communicate with demons and summoning demonic spirits in this pamphlet. Right. So that was one weird aspect. So at some time between recent years, before Brenda owned it, to the 1980s, somebody had that book in the house, and she kept it, and I now have it. I have the actual book, the actual pamphlet. So, who knows what all was done in this place. And if it was being rented, like I suspect, then there's all kind of people coming in and out of that place over the years. Yeah. And numerous people that have been involved in investigating the house, bad things have happened to them. Brenda was attacked, and so was her husband numerous times, so severely that that's why I ended up buying the house. She called me up one day and said, "Hey, we are flipping done with this place. We think it's tried to kill us 2 or 3 times. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know, but doing what I do, I really couldn't pass it up because now I have my own paranormal lab, so to speak, that I can control the environment. I can do whatever I need to do to try to document, paranormal activity." So, like I said, Ken, we could spend literally 3 or 4 shows talking about all the different layers and things. Brenda had a maintenance man that was helping her do work on it when they first got it. And they were on a ladder in the back of the truck because the house is pretty high up there. It's about 20, 25 feet. And they had to put a ladder in the back of the pickup to get up high enough to paint this one area. So he's up there painting, and he said something rushed at him. There's no window on this area. And he saw an old woman in his mind's eye, and she said, "Get the F out away from my house." And he went flying off the ladder 20 foot in the air and boom, landed on his back.
Dang.
And it knocked the wind out of him, but he was okay. And he got back up and he said, "I'm not," and all kinds of other stuff had already happened. She goes, "I'm not taking any crap off these spirits." So she decided she was going to climb up there and start painting it again. Well, she climbed up there and the ladder started shaking violently. And then she said it was all she could do to get down before the ladder went flying. That was one instance of many. The very first time she took a paranormal team in there trying to get to the bottom of what what was going on in there, she said she was scratched so violently that her back was bleeding and something punched her in the gut to where her spleen it ruptured. And that was another instance right off the bat that happened. When she said that when they would hook power tools up and stuff to, work on the house, that they go flying across the room, stuff would fly across the room. And her son got hit on the head by something and almost, knocked him unconscious, basically knocked him loopy. And many other investigators have had crazy experiences in there. There's a lot of stuff out there on the house before I ever even owned it, from other investigators. There's security cam footage of doors opening and closing by themselves, and they would slam. So the house is really cool the way it's built, in the shape of a cross. And if you stand in the middle of that cross, if you picture in the middle of that cross in your mind's eye, I swear it feels like you're in a swirling vortex, man. You are just like flying high. You can't hardly keep your balance. So, and right under that area is where that fire pit is. So I'm thinking somebody tried to open a doorway there. Somebody did open a doorway there, and there's just so much to it. And people have been attacked there. I've never been attacked there. I've had some crazy stuff fly off the wall. Like we blacked out all the windows. We took that heavy cardboard and we stapled it to all the windows because there's all kind of people that come, and I've had windows broken and you name it. So I was there doing an interview. We're filming a documentary on this place, and one of those. And now this thing is stapled you can't there's no space in between the staples, right? Around the window frame, stapled all the way around this piece of dark cardboard. We're standing there and all of a sudden the thing just goes pop and flies off. And of course we jump because we're like, what the heck was that? I run in the room and there it is on the ground. All the staples it was pushed off of the staples. Staples were still in the window frame and the board was off. And there was no one in that room. And that's, that's some, and it's got the whole gambit of paranormal activity, EVPs, equipment goes crazy, batteries drain. Many people have claimed to see shadow figures, and we caught one by pure happenstance, and I sent that clip to you for tonight.
Yes.
We'll talk about that when we get to it, but
yes,
just the whole gambit has happened there. Some people have had tremendous car wrecks after investigating that, or just coming up onto the property. One of Brenda's friends, there was 2 guys that she knew really well. They were brothers, and one of their friends was with them. And she was working in the front yard, and that maintenance guy was mowing in the back. Well, they motioned at her to come over to the front yard, and she went over there. She was talking to him and stuff, and then they drove off. Well, she said about 30 minutes later, she got a phone call, and these are people she's known for years, good friends of hers, that they were life flighted because they had a horrible car wreck. Well, she found out later that for no reason whatsoever, the 2 brothers got into a major fight inside the car while they were driving, doing 80 miles an hour, punching each other. The car flips and goes flipping off the road and lands in the graveyard where one of the former owners was buried.
Oh my gosh.
And the weird thing is, So that when she was talking to him in the front yard, they asked her about the willow tree, where it gets its name. And she's like, don't mess with that tree because it's got bad juju or something. And, oh, we don't believe in none of that. And she, they ripped off a limb of that tree and threw it in their dashboard. And that's one of the crazy stories from the house. And these guys are all broken up, man. They got all 3 life flights. None of them died. And there's just so much to this place. I highly recommend my book if you want to read more about it. And, we could spend literally a long time
Absolutely, because we got a clip we're going to get into a little bit later. I want to circle back a little bit on the idea of any kind of ritualism there, and you both can weigh in on this, because oftentimes sects, SECTS, not SEX, they will tend to go to a rural area just to be able to perform rituals with impunity to attract less attention. And they will also go to small communities like that because you have maybe a lot of young, disenfranchised or bored young people who are vulnerable that they can kind of attract into that type of thing. So it doesn't surprise me. Oh, we lost Dave there. But it doesn't surprise me that a lot of these things don't take place in big urban areas, but they take place in small towns where people are impressionable. I think we got Dave back.
Yeah, there he is.
Something crazy happened. There's all this weird static interference and stuff while you were telling that story.
No, but I mean, to sum it all up, where, sometimes these groups will go to a rural area, and I don't know how long that you were in, I'll just keep it quick, where you got some bored youth, some vulnerable youth, disenfranchised youth that is just looking for something to hang their hat on, something to be a part of, and they will accept them in as sort of a family, and this is where these things grow. And a lot of times these rituals that they do, they're pretty arcane. They're copied off of something or what they think a ritual is like, because you'll see some really archaic ruins that look like something off, an Iron Maiden, album cover. They don't really mean anything. So I'm just wondering, when you say these kind of things thrive there, I mean, who the hell's going to build a fire in a fire pit in the basement anyway? Not very bright.
And it's a third floor crawl space. It's not even a basement. It's a third floor. It's so bizarre. I've never seen anything like it.
I'm just wondering if that kind of thing in your mind. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, well, let's do that first, as far as these type of things happening in small towns, because you read about this a lot. So maybe that will.
It might also attract those types of people, because they might assume that there's less law enforcement in these small rural places. I know I grew up in one of those towns in southeastern Oklahoma. One of those one stoplight towns. And I remember one of our favorite sayings was, if I ever wanted to commit a murder and get away with it, I'd commit it in Stigler, which is the little town I grew up in, Stigler, Oklahoma, because, they wouldn't want to embarrass my family. It's like everything is done sort of in a family way. It's very, very weird. But so I wonder if that could be it. They might think they might be safer to carry on whatever weird stuff they want to do. But you'd think that they would really stick out in a small town too. That would be
that was the 80s and the early 90s. We all know that was the height of the satanic panic, as they called it.
Right.
And, it's hard to tell what people were messing around with and dabbling in. And inadvertently, they could have opened some kind of doorway, because people dabble in stuff. They don't know what they're doing. And it can cause all kind of stuff that go on. I've seen that happen. I'm sure Ken has over the years too. We deal in this when we do these investigations, and I've talked to so many people in these home and these residential cases that I've done, and sure enough, in like 90 to 95% of the negative type hauntings, they've dabbled in some spell work, or they've messed with Ouija boards, or whatever the case. They've done stuff they really didn't understand. They thought it was cool. They saw it on TV. They wanted to try it, get a quick scare. And next thing you know, they have an attachment, or they got crazy stuff going on in their homes. So, not saying that happens on every time somebody messes with one, but in some cases that does happen.
You know who gets more upset about that than anybody is the Church of Satan, believe it or not. When they see
Yes.
what these people are pretending and making believe that they're doing, because you can have your opinion on the Church of Satan, whatever, but it's kind of funny to say it out loud, but they feel it gives them a bad name.
I'm sorry.
Because they really do, because they come at that from a certain point of view, which, hey, they're allowed to do that. But really, they're not preaching, if you will, any kind of malevolence or anything like that in its
No.
purest form. But then you get all these splinter groups out there and kids running around and, self-appointed Satanists who just, they go off on these tangents like this, just playing make-believe. It's like a cosplay thing. And they don't know what they're doing. And the next thing you know, they burn a house down, or they, take a life or something like that because they think they're compelled to. And there's a lot of stories like that. The Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, was actually kicked out of the Church of Satan because Anton LaVey thought he was nuts. Anton LaVey thinks you're nuts. You got a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived through the Night Stalker stuff out here in LA. It was horrible, horribly scary, and made even scarier, I might say, by the, satanic symbols and things like that. It was, made it more spooky, but I can just remember suffocating at night with all the windows closed. And we didn't have much air conditioning here in LA at that time because we didn't really need it. We do now, but we didn't need it back then. And so it was just awful. Having to sleep with your windows all shut, and but it was too scary not to.
That's all. In my point of view, in my opinion, it's all about intent. If you're seeking to do harm onto others, then you're wrong. And it doesn't matter what you're into. If you are intentionally setting out to hurt others and whatnot, then that's on you. You're not a good person in my eye, in my eyes anyway. So no matter what your forte is.
Wanted to ask you now, this place, Willows Weep, I think that I had read you're kind of using that as a sort of a laboratory type of setting. So
now
tell us a little bit of, do you have people come in? Do you allow people to come in? Are there guardrails that you set up for people, parameters they have to meet, their intention? Speaking of intentions, tell us a little bit about that.
So I used to, in the beginning, in the first couple of years that I owned it, I've owned it since 2017. I used to allow groups to come in. Okay. And however, the place is very old and it needs a lot of work, and it's becoming dangerous now. The floors are very weak. And that's the physical stuff, but there's also the dark side of things that I had to take a step back and say to myself, what if something bad happens to someone that I let in here? I would not be able to forgive myself. Okay. And there has been friends of mine that have gone there and had some very bad things happen to them afterwards. And I really had to sit back and say, hey, it's not worth it to me. It's not worth it to me. So I've pretty much shut that aspect of it down, other than if some of my close personal friends want to go in, I'll probably let them. But, my whole plans with this place was, I have my own paranormal lab. I let a lot of groups in for the first couple of years. Some crazy evidence was captured by some of those groups. And then I reevaluated the situation. I decided I wanted to tell the house a story, documentary style. And it has, to me, it's a very dark location. And those dark locations with all that tragedy and stuff, that pain, that anguish, that blood and everything that's happened there stains the very ground of that house and that property. And what I want to do with it, and I think it's kind of my responsibility now, since I own the house, is when I'm done doing what I'm finishing up another book about it, the second half of this first book. The first book's called The Beginning, and this is going to be the end of it. And I'm literally going to either burn the house, have it burnt and cleanse it, or have it torn down. And we're going to have the property cleansed by several different clergy types, a shaman, because it's a heavy Native American area there. There was many battles fought in and around that area. The neighbors, have shown me pottery and arrowheads they've dug up in their gardens, just by digging their gardens. So a lot of tragedy, even before this house was even built, has happened on that land. A lot of just massacres and all kinds. During Lafayette and a lot of people, the French and Indian Wars went right through that area, and there was a lot of people on both sides killed on that. So it has a ton of different layers. Like I said, it's like an onion. You got to peel back all these layers to try to get to the bottom. Not to mention, who knows what people have done in that house. I just don't know. There's too many things going on. And, you have the whole Masonic influence there. There's so many layers to this place, so many deaths, crazy deaths. Many investigators have captured phenomenal things there. So what I'm going to do is when I get, I think it's the right thing to do. I already have a buyer for the land, and it's a Native American. And he's going to put horses on it. And, horses are very grounding animals. So we're going to have it cleansed by a Catholic priest, probably a Baptist minister, because that's my religion, and a shaman or 2 or 3, and a holistic person. And I'm going to go the whole gamut. We're probably going to put a little water feature on there somewhere, and then it's going to have grounding animals on it. And that's, that's down the road some. I still got some things to do with it that I want to get done, but I don't want other investigators in there because, and I've had some crazy stuff happen. I went there one time, came into the house, walked up on the sidewalk, and there was upside pentagrams drawn all over the sidewalk. So somebody was there on the property illegally doing stuff they shouldn't have been doing yet again. I've had some windows busted out, people gawking, I had cameras up, called the law on people, got a couple of people got arrested for trespassing. But, it's not going to stop. And it's just I got, he lives there now next door, and he watches the property. So we haven't had no problem since he took over Brenda's old house, where she ended up marrying the guy next door. She fell in love with the guy next door. And, that was another whole aspect.
Right?
Yeah. So this guy, when she was finally done with it, this guy was in good health, and, he had no medical history or nothing. He went over one time, was working on the house, had a stroke. Boom. He got through that, and I can't remember which order it happened, and I have it in my paperwork. But then no one went in the house for months, and they said they would see the curtains open, somebody looking out, and then stuff started happening in their house next door. So it was like creeping over. And then he went back again like 7-8 months after he recovered from one thing, and then he had a heart attack. So, they were just like, we're done with this place. We know it's from the negative energy there. We're out of here. And that's how I ended up buying the house, and it's just.
Did this place now, obviously, before it even came to your attention, I assume this place had a reputation.
Yes.
In town.
Yes.
So now it appears on television.
Mm-hmm.
It gives it more notoriety. So not that, you got the call, we're going to do this place, but looking back on it now in retrospect, do you kind of think that the attention that show brought to it maybe didn't help things a little bit?
No, I don't think it did, really.
Because now you got pentagrams on the sidewalk, and everybody wants peace now.
He definitely caused more of the negative element to come there and do things. So, you live and learn, man. It's one of those life lessons that, hey, you want to tell the story of this place because it's a very compelling story about this house and all the different tragedies. And, it's what we look for as investigators, as your typical, not typical, above atypical haunts. It's got all these things we look for that could cause a haunting, right? So I'm thinking, well, doing what I do for all these years, this would be perfect opportunity for me to have my own lab and really try to study this more and in a more controlled environment and document more things. And that's the whole reason I did what I did with it, and I, it wasn't just me experiencing things. Many, many other teams, hundreds, if not, have been in there investigating that place before I ever even owned it. So, and I got many accounts from those people. Some of the investigators before I owned it, there was married couples that Brenda used to let people stay the night in the house, right? Well, she said almost in every single case of people that were married, they had really crazy divorces. Some violence happened after they investigated the house. Just all these things happened to all these different people in there. And, it's just, it's so much negativity that you can't help but say, man, whatever's in this house, and then I'm a firm believer there's a specific demon that causes suicides and pushes people over the edge. It may have some things going on with them. I never say those names out loud or anything, but you guys probably know who I'm talking about. Starts with an M. And I've seen many cases. There's a whole nother really crazy case that I did with John Zappos was involved, and that same situation occurred in this house, and this is a totally different house in another state, and there was suicides, there was crazy deaths. Many people had moved in, some left right away, leaving all their belongings, and you kind of see these things, and it's another Native American site, by the way, that these negative type things were occurring in some of these locations where there was suicides in the house. And we're talking from young people too, and some of these families that moved in never had any issues. As soon as they moved into this house, they went through crazy divorces. Some of them began using drugs and became alcoholics, just a lot of negative energy. So, you can't say it's just coincidence all the time, because it's not necessarily coincidence in my book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you drawn any parallels between this place and the Sherman Ranch or Skinwalker Ranch, the old Sherman Ranch?
No.
I mean, any of the same types of activity going on?
Well, Skinwalker Ranch, I mean, it has the whole plethora going on. There's skinwalkers, there's creatures, there's UFOs in the sky.
It's another Native American.
Yeah, everything under the sun.
Connection.
The only thing I would say would match up with some Native American stuff, that would be it. But there's no reports of skinwalkers there. Only shadow beings or shadow figures or shadow people, yes. Definitely there at the Willows Weep house.
Oh,
and you'll see that later.
We're going to...
Oh my God.
I definitely want to get to that. We got about 3 minutes before we go to break. So if you guys want to, is it okay if I take a couple of questions for you?
Sure.
All right. Our friend Erin Bush. Have you been inside the attic, Dave? Curious if any writing of any kind
Good question.
would be found in the eaves. And I'm going to preface this by saying that it's a good call, Erin, because this is something that I do all the time in old houses, because we're still like cavemen. We love to leave our mark on stuff. We love to write our names, and you know what? And if you're paying attention to that type of stuff, it can be a breadcrumb trail. So anything like that there, Dave?
So yes, I have been in the attic. I will tell you this. I told you guys there's only one way to get in, and that's through the outside one outside window. And guess what? There's power lines right next to it. So it's very, very dangerous. I mean, you're literally this far away from an active power line when you're trying to get into that thing. So, you have to take the window out very carefully so you don't touch the freaking power line, and then they hand it down to somebody. And I've crawled up in there, but there's some plywood in there, but it's if you're not careful, you'll fall straight to the floor.
Oh yeah,
dangerous. But I did not see any writing. But as soon as I got in there, you felt an overwhelming negative presence or heavy feeling, like one of those ones where you can almost cut it with a knife. It's so thick and heavy, negative feeling. I looked around in there, I did it in the daytime so I could see better, even though there's only one window up there to let in light. You still had to take a flashlight, look around. The house has a lot of critters in it because it's just so old. I mean, and that's a whole nother story. Last time I was there filming that documentary, it had the whole black fly situation going on, just like you've seen in some of the Hollywood movies. It was really freaking me out. One of the ladies who's a psychic, it was actually my girlfriend now. She was there. I took her because she's very, very good. And she was bit all over her back by no-see-ums. You couldn't even see them. And she had all these bug bites. It was just really bad. Yeah. And, and we filmed all that stuff too. And, is it coincidental? Possibly, but possibly not too. We just don't know. But no, I did not see, to answer the lady's question. No, I saw no writing in there that I could make out anything on, but I also didn't cover the entire area because it goes the whole length of the house. And I literally have to go get plywood and put it down so I could crawl around and walk around in there so I didn't fall through the floor to my death or break my legs or something, So, I'm one of only 2 or 3 people that's been under the house. And then I've been up in the attic just about 10, 15 feet in. went as far as I could, without falling to the floor and looking around. But there's no staircase. That's one of the most bizarre things. It's in the home plans.
Yeah, what the heck?
No staircase.
Yeah,
So
did it look like there ever had been?
there's one area that we think there may have been one in, but for some reason they've sealed it up. Now I'll tell you one really bizarre story before we go to break really quick.
Well, actually, can we get to
We
break?
better go to break.
Yeah, we're gonna pay some bills.
Sorry
here,
again.
so.
Yeah, pay some bills.
That's right. Bills in there. You're watching Dead Air here on KGRA. Our guest, Dave Spinks, my special co-host, that lovely lady, Renee Barnett. On the backside, we're going to be maybe taking some of your calls, more of your questions. We're going to talk about Bigfoot for a little bit, and we're going to play some remarkable clips we're going to get into. So stay with us at the break. Break, Bill. Hello, who is it? How'd you get this number?
Hey, Ken. Hey, man, it's George. Hey, man, what are you doing?
Right now, I'm trying to chop ice off of my deck here before somebody breaks their neck. What are you doing today?
Me? Oh, ghost hunting. Hey, listen, Bill from KGRA wants us to do a commercial, a promo for the show for them to play. Got any ideas?
I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to film a commercial or something like that. Well, hey, why don't we just do a montage or something, like clips from the show, and just call it a day?
Okay, yeah. Just put a bunch of highlighted parts of the show. Not a problem. I'll take care of that. Listen, have a great day. I'm almost done here.
Yeah, all right, man. Let me know how you make out, all right? Yeah, you bet. Be good. I'm okay.
Tony, I love you.
I love you too. Yeah, you know what? That's why I hate when they say the old people in the Northeast are so rude. I'm like, you, I'm down here and I'm being nice, and everybody's like, not even a wave. I'm like, you're not going to get the coronavirus from waving at somebody.
A little close up to you. Check this out. Hello.
Hang on, let's get us on camera again so we can wave. Wave back, Robert.
Yep.
Would you wait?
Robert, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing some time, inviting us into your home.
I co-authored a book with Andrea Perrin, if anybody was not aware of that.
No one is aware of that.
No, and I've never been to the Conjuring House.
Yep. I wrote a book
We're going to do this again.
with Andrea Perrin, and I've still never been to the farmhouse.
Did I mention I wrote a book with Andrea? I wanted to, it's over my shoulder there, and I've never been.
We took a 2-week absence from this, and now we're back with
to the Conjuring House.
Dude, I'm hiding, man. It's over. Oh, I'm sorry. It's
What's going on?
Love that blanket. I'm having blanket envy.
I know you are right now, right?
Yes. Sometimes I move it around with my body. It's like Ouija meets Twister. In the middle of the night, I contact spirits just by rolling around on it naked.
Watch Dead Air on KGRADB.com Sundays from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.
And also, don't forget to check out KGRA YouTube and KGRA on Facebook for all the amazing shows, guests, and topics. Did I mention that I wrote a book with Andrea Perrin?
And we are back. And as promised, we're going to finish that story. But first, I want to give everybody a heads up for a new show that's debuting on our YouTube channel, Dead Air Full Spectrum, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Brand new show, premiere episode. Let's take a quick look.
Since the first humans shivered around campfires, staring nervously into the darkness beyond, we've shared stories of the terrible creatures of the night. You'll find them in every culture. Ghosts and the undead, shapeshifters and devils, and some things too terrifying to name. Today we tell ourselves such things are nonsense, nothing more than scary stories to frighten children. Until darkness comes, the lights go out, and we all know in the pit of our souls, there are monsters in the night. Join legend hunters Ronald Murphy and Christopher Rondina as they venture into darkness to unearth the strange and terrifying creatures of legend and folklore. Grab some garlic and wolfsbane and get ready for Monday Night Monsters. Premiering Monday, March 7th at 8 p.m. only on YouTube's Dead Air Full Spectrum.
So that's tomorrow night on Dead Air Full Spectrum.
Wow.
Murphy?
That's really cool, man. I want to check that out.
Ronald Murphy. They're going to get into things like vampire, werewolf legends. They're going to talk about the dogmen, but they're going to talk about how it relates to contemporary times and where these stories came from, the actual Frankenstein. And tomorrow night, I think it's werewolves. I think they're going to talk about the dogman of Wisconsin and the Beast of Bray Road and all sorts of things like that. So that's tomorrow night at 8 o'clock.
That's cool. I got a new book coming out, West Virginia Dog Man, in the next few months.
There you go.
There you go. Nothing that I've experienced, but I've went out and investigated several things. I've got prosecuting attorneys involved that have witnessed things, and so that's exciting, you know. And that whole phenomena just trips me out, man. I mean, the whole dog thing. Right? You know, you see these movies growing up, these werewolf movies as a kid, but then you realize you have all these people from all over the country and all over the world saying they're seeing these type of animals running around too. So and I've seen some compelling tracks and stuff that will blow your mind.
Yeah, we definitely want to get into that. But before we went to break, Dave, you were in the middle of a story that I had to interrupt for break. So please continue, because we've got people in chat that are like, I got to hear this. So,
all right. So okay. One of the most horrible stories that comes out of the week that's real, that's 100% confirmed. So the original owner's son, after that, his mom and dad died, he took the property over, right? And he was previously married, and his new wife was previously married. They had a bunch of kids from their previous marriage. Then they had kids together. So they had I think it was 12 or 15 daughters.
Oh my God.
And this house, you guys have seen the house. It was tiny. It's tiny. It's like maybe 1,500 square feet at the most. So it was a huge farm back in those days. Well, this guy, he got busted for molesting one of his stepdaughters. And he probably did more than one, I would assume, because he was, from what I understand and what I've read, the guy was a real piece of work, if you get my drift, a real piece of POS. And I know it's factual because I've got the court records. He was charged with molesting his stepdaughter, and was the only thing they did to him was fine him $700, which was a crap ton of money in the early 1900s, but didn't change the fact that he did what he did. Now, you want to talk about a karmic thing that happened to this guy. This is one of those times. So one night he was out feeding the hogs because it's, like I said, it's a huge farm. They had hogs, they had cattle, all kinds of stuff. He doesn't come back for dinner when it was dinner time. So the wife sends out one of the daughters to fetch him and bring him back for chow time. Well, to her horror, as she got to the hog pen where he was at, he was laying on the ground being eaten alive by his own hogs. They had chewed off his private parts, one of his ears, his entrails were hanging out. One of his ankles was, missing. One of his feet was almost off where the hogs had ate him up. So she runs back screaming in terror. They get help. They drag him back into the house where he bleeds out and dies. So if you read Mark 5 in the Bible and you hear about the demons going into the swine, that's pretty compelling if you think about it in that aspect, and talk about karma coming to get you. So pretty horrific thing. Again, another person dies in the house in a horrible way, bleeds out, being eaten alive by hogs, and who was not a nice person as well. So now that's just another one of the horrible aspects of this place and this property. There's rumors that there was a cabin on there way before that house, and a family of 8 people burned up alive in the cabin as well. I can't confirm it. I've tried. Can't find the records on it. But the neighbor who's now deceased, who was in her 90s, told Brenda, the former owner, that her parents knew the original builders of the house. So they knew the original owners of the property in the house. So she's the one that passed on a lot of this information. And unfortunately, she passed on before, I became owner. So I couldn't pluck her brain for all that information.
Yeah.
But she was very spry, according to Brenda, very sharp as a tack, in her upper 90s when she passed on. So, but one of the crazy things is her grandson emailed me, and he said that his other grandma actually lived in the house for a while, rented it, and she told, when he would often stay with her there. And he said there was times when the rocking chair in the house that she had would rock. And the old timers also were the old time women. They would set the table at night for breakfast in the morning. Yeah. They would preset everything. My grandma did it. I don't know about you guys, but my grandma did it.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they would come out in the morning. They would get up and all the dishes and stuff would be all over the floor. So there was all kind of paranormal stuff happening way back in this place. Another story I can't confirm was there was this Black Widow type woman that moved into the house. So she had been married 3 previous times, and all of her husbands died of mysterious circumstances. They can never figure out why. And she had a 5 or 6 year old daughter and a teenage son from these previous marriages. Well, she went by a funny nickname. No one ever knew her real name. And she was one of those people that would move from place to place to place. Right. Well, one time her daughter just ends up missing, and they have a big manhunt for her. They can't find her. Never did know. Nobody ever knew what happened to this little girl. And then several months later, so she finds the teenage son hanging. He hung himself in the house. So I've been told that story by several people that lived in the neighborhood who knew about it, or like their parents knew about it, and it was talked about for many, many years. Well, the woman just disappeared. No one ever knew what happened to her. She ran away. And when Brenda had that maintenance man go under the house when they first got it to check the pipes and stuff, he's still alive today, but he won't talk about it. He's told me about it, but he won't talk about it on camera or nothing because it terrified him what happened to him. So he's under the house looking for the pipes. He crawls over there and he notices these weird mounds of dirt under the crawl space. I've seen these mounds. I've been under the house, but I did not do anything to them as of yet. So he said he had to move some of the dirt out of his way to crawl up underneath where the bathroom pipes were to check them. And when he did, he said a bone popped out of one of the mounds. He said he started looking at it, and as he was trying to figure out what kind of bone it was, he said something unseen attacked him violently in a sexual manner, and it was all he could do. He said he had to fight with all of his might to get out from under there. He got out of there, ran to Brenda, gave her the bone, and said, "I'm never going under that effing house again. Screw you." to that, something like that. So she, according to her, she didn't know what to do with this bone because she said it looked human. So she took it to the local country doc. There's a little small town doctor. He looked at it, said it's definitely a child's arm bone, but it looks really old. So apparently they contacted the doctor, contacted the sheriff's department. They said, well, we'll take the doctor's word for it. It's up to you. If it's really old, they might have built a house on an old graveyard. Which is highly suspect to me.
Yeah, but Dave, as former law enforcement, that's crime.
They should have conducted an entire investigation.
Well, yeah.
And so I haven't pursued that yet. So that's oncoming. So So anyway, long story short, she said, well, what do I do with it? And he said, well, either get rid of it or put it back where you found it. So she put it back under the house. So it's supposedly still under there. Now, I'm not going to go, I have a real issue with going under and disturbing the grave before I call the cops, so do I call the cops and have them come and tear up the entire floor of the house to find out what's going on here? Or do I get, I'm thinking maybe I can get some GPR in there and maybe see if there is in fact some bones under there. If there is, then I'll call law enforcement, have them come over there and do what they got to do. Yeah. But the whole thing is just highly suspect in my eyes. I mean, there should have been an immediate investigation as far as I was concerned, but this happened way before I owned it. So I can't confirm or deny that story at this point. Right. But more to come on that. So that's just some more of the crazy stuff at the Willows Weep house.
Now, I wanted to ask you about one of these clips because I do want to get to these clips because going through them today, some outstanding stuff. I want to start off, let's just go hard out of the gate. Now, the shadow person captured, was this at Willows Weep or somewhere else? All right, so
go ahead and just play the clip, and then I'll tell everybody. You want me to walk them through it first, or do you want me to talk about it after?
This is for everybody out there as well. This is pretty remarkable what you're going to see right here, because I went through it 2 or 3 times. But Dave, why don't you set it up as far as what it is they're about to see?
Okay, so that was captured 2 years ago. Okay, I talked a little bit about the documentary I was filming there. So I had a camera guy there who approached me who wanted to do a Hollywood style horror movie out of this house, but I said, no, let's just do a documentary. I want to do a documentary. And he said, okay. So we were there just filming interviews during this whole thing, right? During the day, middle of the day, just filming me talking about some of the stories I've shared with you tonight. And he had put a GoPro up on the front door, the inside door, just for another camera angle. And we filmed, and that's when I told you that thing flew off of the window too. This all happened together. So that cardboard thing flies off the window, and we're like, holy crap. And I was like, yeah, figures Willows Weep's at it again, right? So we got done filming everything we were filming, some outside stuff, some inside stuff for the day. And they're behind the house, there's a big metal building with a cement floor. So that's where we keep all the gear, and most teams put their gear in when they would go in and investigate. So we were packing everything up. We were loaded in the vehicle, and he goes, oh, crap, I forgot the GoPro. So I gave him the key, and this was like 5:30 in the evening. It was still daylight, plenty of daylight left in the middle of summer. He runs in thinking nothing about it, grabs the GoPro, throws it in his bag, and we leave. We're gone. We're out of there. The important thing to remember, there was no one else around this house other than us. Nobody, period. And I made sure that I always make sure that I always double, triple, quadruple check. So we leave. About a month later, he calls me freaking out because he had not looked at the footage off of the GoPro.
I don't blame him.
Right. So when this all goes down, we're out in the back building, like 60, 70 feet away from the house, packing gear. There's only 3 of us there, and including him, or it's 4 of us, including him. And we're all in the back ready to go. And he runs it. This happened sometime between the time we were out of the house packing the gear and when we were in the car. So he runs in, grabs it, and he calls me freaking out, right? And I'm like, what? And he goes, I sent you a clip. You got to look at it. So I watch this clip, and I'm like, holy crap. Are you kidding me? Not only does it show a full-blown shadow figure in the house, there's unexplained bangs and noises and dragging sounds going on in the house at the same time when nobody is in the house or even around the outside of the house whatsoever. And another thing you have to remember when you see this, the windows that are in that room that the shadow figure in are about 3 to 4 feet off the ground. So if it would have been a person outside casting a shadow from the sun, you wouldn't see their feet. It would only be from the waist up, roughly.
Right.
Correct.
So you have to really know all the circumstances before you make a judgment, because there's no way, and you can tell it's inside the room, 100%. And then you will, before you see the main shadow figure, you'll see a huge shadow go across the ceiling.
Correct.
And then after you see the main, you'll see a white mist come out from that room. It's really, I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
All right.
And it was captured by pure happenstance, not during an investigation or anything.
Isn't that the way it normally? I would love to say some of the best things captured is because we're so skillful, but sometimes blind squirrel finds an acorn, right place, right time. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to play this for you, and it is one of the more remarkable clips, and that's saying something because we've had. Of
course, there's some creepy music that had to be added. I didn't do that. That was his movie making stuff.
But you know, and that's saying something because we've had some creepy stuff, and I'm interested in Renee taking a look at this and.
Oh, gosh.
She has not seen this. So, all right. So here you go. Shadow person caught at Willows Weep, Indiana. Okay. I'm going to, I wish I would have clipped that part, but I'm going to play that again. I'm going to play it.
I want to see it again.
The whole thing in its entirety. One more time, folks.
Thank
All right, they're flipping out already. Talk amongst yourselves because that is the. I mean, that's the rarest of all things that we get. Like when you're getting full-bodied apparitions on camera.
Aaron, I agree with Aaron and Justin. Holy moly!
And you can see the clip on my old YouTube channel or my YouTube channel. You can watch it, you know, over and over. We can really see the detail and make it full screen.
Okay.
It's pretty crazy, guys. I mean, and there's other stuff going on in the room at the same time, and afterwards and before that the main shadow figure scene. So that made it even more compelling for me because there's actually unexplained noises going on, bangs and dragging sounds, like someone's walking through the house. It's really, really one of those things that just blew me away.
And there was something that looked like it went across the ceiling or something.
It was like smoky, shadowy, you know, you can see it. It's like really, and you know, I don't know, man. It was by pure happenstance and it really blew me away. I've never seen anything like that, especially in broad daylight. And I know for a fact that no one was around the outside of the house, which wouldn't even matter because you wouldn't see their legs and feet anyway at that particular room.
Yeah, you know, and the thing is, when you're seeing something like that, it reinforces the point that a lot of this is performance art because, folks, it doesn't have to be dark. You don't have to have infrared because the majority of the sightings and the experiences people have, they happen during the day. They're not ghost hunting. They're making dinner. They're watching TV, they're doing their laundry, they're doing mundane things when they have these type of experiences. So now that you know these things, and that seemed to be, at first blush, something residual, something that was repeating. Now there was nobody there. Maybe if this thing stopped and acknowledged you and took a look at you, then you can say, okay, now we got to go in a different direction. But if this is a repetitive sort of thing going on, I'm sure that after seeing that, I know you hammered that place during the day.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Exactly that time to see if,
And, most people, when they do capture or see a shadow figure, it is on infrared cameras too, and a lot of the ones I've seen. Now, I've seen some other ones during the day that were pretty compelling too, but it seems like to me the most ones I've seen are at night on an infrared camera because it looks blacker than black, blacker than the green pitch on the IR. But, that whole sequence just blew us away. And it blew me away to the fact where I was questioning him. I said, did you see, G, that you're messing with me? I said, you're messing with me. You did something. And he's like, no, dude, I swear to God. He doesn't even believe in the paranormal that much until now, until after all these experiences he's had with me and some other guys that I work with. But, he was a pure skeptic, when it comes to this. He's a horror movie guy. He likes filming horror movies. But I talked him into doing a documentary with me on this house. And it freaked him out big time. And he was like, man, there's no way. I don't know if I can ever go back in that house again after seeing this. And I'm like, well, I told you it's real, dude. I mean, there's real phenomena going on. And he was just blown away. And those are the people I'd love to hear that from because it just gives us more validation,
Yeah.
The question, this was that particular figure was caught on GoPro, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what that does to me is eliminates security camera, CCTV bleed-in.
Yep.
I may
static GoPro.
Those of you out in chat, I mean, we're talking Investigator right now, but you probably know what we're talking about because you can pick up stray feeds on a certain frequency.
Yep.
Because I've seen it, but on a GoPro is a standalone unit. We're not relying on Bluetooth or anything like that.
Yeah, there's a straight all by itself camera, not hooked to any kind of Wi-Fi cable, nothing. Just a straight up GoPro.
While I have your indulgence, let's play a couple more of these things, not from Willows Weep, but you've got 3 others here that are audio recordings. Let's start off with Cookie. Now, real quickly, background on Cookie. We'll get to it.
Okay, this is another case. I was called in by the homeowner. It's actually a very old plantation down in South Carolina. And I actually did this location on Ghost Nation with Jason and the guys. I actually took them there during their show and we did an episode there. But this Cookie was a longtime worker of the house, a black lady. She was a nurse. She was a cook. She did everything. And I was kind of trying to communicate with her. And this is what I got.
Okay, here we go. I'm calling this Cookie Response.
Is Cookie here? Yes. Cookie, what was your job? Say your name. Say anything you want on my count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Oh my gosh.
So those are, those responses, mind you, were captured off of the old Hack Shack Ghost Box, one of my favorite pieces of equipment. And that's why they're indifferent. Some sound male and some sound female.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, when it comes to a ghost box, it doesn't get much better than that. Those are direct, relevant, pertinent responses to what I was asking.
Exactly.
On command. I said, when I count to 3, I mean, it says Cookie right there. And you hear the first female voice say yes.
Yeah, a lot of people, the technique on doing that is that you're looking to maybe get something repeated twice, 3 times, because you got to test yourself. Let's do the Civil War unit right now.
Same house, same location. Was involved heavily in the Civil War. The man's great grandfather was actually tied to the back of a Union horse, and they kicked him in the head, and they did it on purpose to try to kill him. So they were in the house. They set the house on fire, and the slaves saved the house from burning.
Okay, makes sense when we got the response of the nurse then. Okay, this is a question being asked about someone who fought in the War of the States and asked to identify their unit. So here we go.
How many Civil War soldiers are here on this property? Were you treated here for wounds, or did you die here? What unit were you in?
Okay, I hear Unit 7. Okay, let's go one more time.
How many Civil War soldiers are here on this property? Were you treated here for wounds, or did you die here? What unit were you in?
Yeah.
So I heard on that one. I heard Clearsville Cavalry. That's one of the clips we played on the Ghost Nation episode, and they heard it too. But you can hear some other responses in there as well. You know?
Yeah.
So one of the cool things about that location was, so I've been there numerous times, obviously, and there was a known murder that took place, but I didn't know this when I first went there. I was told later, and I was asking questions, and we got the response that a guy that I said, how were you killed? And he said, he stabbed me. And then I said, who stabbed you? And he said the guy's name was John. Well, later for the Ghost Nation episode, they confirmed that a man was stabbed by a man named John. So it was really cool. And it was on a ghost box. And, you know, Jason and those guys really don't like ghost boxes. They don't buy into them. But they said, yeah, it looks like Dave got lucky on this one. Got a really good response.
Yeah, lucky.
But, you know, it is what it is. We all have our own fortes, you know.
All right, the last one I want to play before we move on to another topic was Along with the Shadow Person. This is one of my favorite. Who was William Heyman, Dave?
So the William Heyman, this is a place here in West Virginia, the William Heyman House. This guy was a very rich man back in those late 1800s, early 1900s up in Sutton here, like 30 minutes from my house. And I was asked to come and check this house out too. And it was rumored that one of his daughters had maybe died in the house. So I was trying to get some answers for that, you know, using that line of questioning. And you'll see what I got on this one. Pretty interesting.
This is pretty remarkable, this one. I kind of saved this. I wanted to start fast and end fast. So I'll actually play this a couple of times. David sent me the wave clip. So what I did is I put it through a sound program so you'll see the capture of the sound program.
William Heyman House, EVP Session 1. We heard that there was a little girl who died here. If you're here with us now, can you please tell us your name? If you are Mr. Heyman's daughter, can you tell us your name, please? We're not here to frighten you. We just want to talk with you.
That one gives me cold chills, man.
Now, that is one of the ones that when you're reviewing your audio, that's one of those that the headphones go flying off.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's definitely
a child.
And you say, Daddy, is that you? I mean, my hair on my arm standing up.
I could definitely hear a little girl. I couldn't understand what she said. Do you know what she said?
She says, Daddy, is that you? Clear the bell.
Oh.
If we got, I'll be more than happy to play it again for everybody because a lot of people in chat. So, hey guys, before we move on to the next topic, I'll play this for you one more time because
that's great.
You heard it right, kid.
Yeah, awesome.
William Heyman House, EVP Session 1. We heard that there was a little girl who died here. If you're here with us now, can you please tell us your name? If you are Mr. Heyman's daughter, can you tell us your name, please? We're not here to frighten you. We just want to talk with you.
Well,
Oh
if
my gosh.
it doesn't pull
That's
at your
exactly what she
heartstrings a
said.
little bit, you ain't got no heart.
Yeah.
Daddy, is
You
that
know.
you? Oh.
Yeah. So that's pretty amazing. And Dave, thank you for sharing those with you.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the ones that when I hear that thing, I'm just imagining that there's a couple of guys in the house, there's no little children, and this comes out of nowhere. So
Hmm.
that's pretty amazing.
Actually, on that one. I was in the house all by myself.
There you go.
Wow.
Even more so.
I didn't hear it live. I heard it on the playback, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
Okay.
So
All right, as we head into the home stretch here, I wanted to put you two guys together on this because, Dave, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Renee's got a little background in Bigfootology.
I do now.
she produced a documentary a few years back called Bigfootville that I think you can still find on Amazon someplace. But I know that you're a man after my own heart because while we're involved in the hauntings, we look at the paranormal more on a macro scale, whether it's UFO phenomena, whether it's weather phenomena, whether it's cryptid phenomena, it's all under the same umbrella. So we don't limit ourselves to that. And I know that this is something that is near and dear to your heart too. So I'm going to take 5 here. I'm going to clock out for a little bit and let you guys just talk Bigfoot for a little, and I'll be back in a second.
Okay.
Wow. Well, I did do a Bigfoot documentary for the Travel Channel, and I think it was on the air for about 12 years. They licensed it for 7, and then I think they licensed it from us for another 5. I don't know where it is now, but it was largely in the area where I grew up in southeastern Oklahoma. So, but we were kind of covering that area where Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas sort of all come together there. And we spent a lot of time in the woods, and particularly with Native American tribes, mainly the Seminole tribe. And it was just really interesting what we were able to learn in a place where I grew up and had no idea about these things that were going on right around me. But I found out, since then and during the documentary investigation, that there were tons of reports, tons of interactions, and we interviewed people from every walk of life: teachers, cops, coaches, bankers, nurses, just a truck driver. I mean, all kinds of people who really weren't keen on telling their story on TV.
Most are.
No, they really had to be talked into it for the most part, especially this one coach that we interviewed down in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, who had an up close and personal encounter with a Bigfoot when he was out in the woods. He was hunting, and he was behind this big bush, and he had his rifle, and he heard something behind him, and he turned around, and he said he was face to face with a Bigfoot. And he said, and I could have shot him, but I didn't. And he said, because he could have killed me, and he didn't. And I said, well, tell me, when you were looking in his eyes, were you looking at an animal or were you looking at a person? He said, I was looking at a person. And he said he just felt this, connection right then and there. And then the Bigfoot walked away. But he was so ridiculed in town that he would not tell that story. He never went back to that location again until we filmed. We did get him to go back out, and we filmed out there. But it took me a long time to talk him into doing that interview. But I think it was the best interview in the whole show. But there were so many stories and legends, and even old Native American drawings and stuff. There's a Seminole tribal museum in Wewoka, Oklahoma, and we went in there and we found like old carvings and stuff of like a Bigfoot creature and an Indian brave, standing there in his buckskins shaking hands. And it was very old. And we hooked up with this one medicine man, God rest his soul. His name was Kennedy Wise, and he was amazing. And he lived way, way deep out in the woods, and people from all over the world used to come and visit this guy, just such a nice and unassuming man. But he says, oh yes, he said, they're just another tribe. He said, they don't bother us and we don't bother them. He said, they follow the rivers. And it was just, accepted. But he did say that they had sort of a super consciousness. And they had different names, for Bigfoot. Like one was called Hatakishtu, which basically means big toes. And but my favorite one is called Ihoza, which means make you forget. Because the medicine man said, oh, you see them all the time. He says, but you don't remember. They make you forget. So that was a great experience.
Well, that's really what started me in this madness. I had a Bigfoot encounter with my grandfather here, right down the road from where I live now on the Gauley River here in West Virginia. And I never talked about it publicly because I've made a promise with him many, many years ago, because he was a Baptist minister for 40 plus years. And it was our experience, my experience with that and his was kind of terrifying, because this thing was really mad and it threw big rocks at it. Yeah. So it kind of set me on my path, and that's why I do what I do today. But we were at a place where we fished many, many times and camped out. That's one of our things we did when I would come back and stay with my both sets of my grandparents and my dad and everybody. And we had caught a bunch of fish, cooked them up. It was just before dark one summer, and we heard this huge splash out in the middle of the river. We didn't see it, but it was such a big splash that the water rained down from it. So whatever hit the water was huge. It was massive. Wow. So we jumped up. We were startled. We looked around. We couldn't figure out what caused this splash. There was nothing floating down the river or nothing. And this river is called the Gauley River. It's fairly large. It's probably 60 to 75 yards across at that particular point. And it flows pretty heavy. I mean, it's fast moving river. People kayak on it and everything. And it's in a big canyon in the particular area we were at. So long story short, we tried to figure out what caused that splash, and we couldn't. So we sat back down. We were just kind of scratching our heads saying that was weird. It's kind of, we were kind of edgy, like what in the world was that? But after several minutes, we calmed down and we were just talking about how weird that was. And then I heard something coming from my left, what sounded like something breaking through the tree branches. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw something, and I turned and I seen a rock about that big around coming up through the trees and come out and hit in the river again. Same type of thing. Kapoosh, big giant splash, water rained down. And this time we both saw it that time because we heard it come through the tree limbs. And we were like, what in the world? So my grandpa and his thinking, nothing scared this man either. He was a World War II vet. He was a second wave at Normandy, that type of thing.
Oh, wow.
He was a Baptist minister for many, many years. So in his mind, he's thinking it's people messing with us from the other side of the river. Where we live here in West Virginia, it's very thick woods, very rural. We grow up hunting and fishing. And there's places that you can go here in this state that man has probably never set foot on. If they did, it was many thousands of years ago, because it's so rugged in some places. So as this is all going on, my grandpa hollers, yells out, says, "You hoodlums, knock it off or I'm going to shoot," So about the time he got done saying that, the most god-awful howling noise came from that side of the river I've ever heard in my life. And it still sends shivers down my spine to this day. And I go to look at him, and he's running for the tent. So I know he's going to get the shotgun that we carried with us for snakes, because there's a lot of snakes by the river when we hunt. So he comes running back, and I'm standing there. I'm a 13-year-old kid. I'm terrified at this point. What in the heck is that? Never heard nothing like that. My whole life I've been in the woods hunting and fishing, and I've never heard nothing like that. So he's standing there looking. We're looking around, and all of a sudden the trees over there start shaking. And I'm talking saplings that are 40, 50 feet, 60 feet high, and they're just looking like there's something giant over there shaking these trees, and limbs are coming off, and it starts howling and making the most god awful ruckus you could ever imagine. So he's loading, he loads a shell and he shoots one over there. It's an old squirrel gun. It wouldn't even hurt nothing if it hit him. It would just pepper him, And then when he shoots that first shot, it goes even crazier. And then I'm like, oh my God. And then he yells at me and he goes, get to the truck, boy. So we had the truck parked over about 30 yards from us. I run over there. I get down behind the left front tire and I'm peeking around looking in that direction. And by this time, he cracked off 3, 4, or 5 more shots. I don't even know how many. He's just going boom, his old single shot shotgun. So he's just trying to scare off whatever it is over there. He don't know what it is either. So after he does this, you kind of start seeing the shaking of the trees moving as whatever's causing it is moving up and away. And as it's moving away, it's shaking the crap out of these trees and yelling and carrying on and hollering. And that's when I caught my first glimpse of it, because there was a clearing there and it came out into the clearing. The weeds were probably 4 feet high. And when this thing came out, it was only up to its weight. The weeds were only up to its waist. Wow. And it was massive. My grandfather was 6'4", and he's a massive man. His arms were as big as my legs. I mean, he was a very strong guy. And I see this thing come out into the clearing. It never looks at me, so I never see its face, but it's a man covered in blackish brown hair. And its shoulders are twice as wide as my grandfather's. I mean, it's massive. And it had no neck, and the head looked little itty bitty because its shoulders were so big.
Yeah.
And it had big, long arms, and it was walking, and it was walking up and like quartering up and away from us. So I looked at my grandpa because I'm seeing this thing, and he comes running. I've never seen him run in his life. And he runs to me, and he picks me up with one arm and opens that truck driver's side door and slings me into the truck cab. And the only thing that stopped me was the passenger door, or I would have went completely through the truck. And he jumps in and he said, "That's not of God, son. We're getting out of here." And he cranked that truck up. And to get down in there where we were is a very rugged road. It's like 3-4 miles down off of the hardtop road to get, and it's steep and it's full of potholes. And he's gunning that truck. I mean, full bore. And I mean, there's 150-foot drop-offs on the side. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to wreck the truck or break the truck down, and that thing's going to come and kill us. So we finally make it up there. It sounds like who knows how many parts fell off the truck at this point. We left all of our fishing gear there, our tent, everything. So he's driving around on the hardtop and not saying a word. And I'm petrified at this point. I got my head in my hands and I'm scared to death. I'm crying. I was 13. I never experienced nothing like that in my entire life. So after like 15, 20 minutes, he pulls off the side of the road, and I'm freaking huffing and puffing here, scared to death. And he's like, "Son, we better not tell nobody about this. They're going to think we're crazy." And, you got to remember, he's a Baptist minister. If he starts talking about this, he's going to lose his parishioners. They're going to think he's doing drugs or drinking or whatever.
Yeah.
So we kind of made a pact right then and there never to talk about it. But at the same time, for me, it scared me, but I also wanted to know what it was that I saw.
Yeah.
And back in those days, we didn't have the luxury of the internet or anything like that. I was going to the local library, school library, looking for anything I could find on this stuff. Lo and behold, I started finding articles about the Yeti and different creatures around the world that these explorers had seen and stuff. And I was like, man, that's almost like what I saw, but the one I saw wasn't white and gray. It was like brown and black. And then I saw the show for the first time, In Search Of, with Leonard Nimoy, and they happened to be doing a Bigfoot episode. And I was like, that's what I saw right there. And I knew then I wasn't crazy. I actually seen something, and I couldn't talk to him. Every time I did, he'd say, "Nope, that's demons. We're not talking about that." Because in the old timer, my grandpa, he was fire and brimstone preacher, man, pounding the pulpit, hardcore preacher. And in their view, if you talked about these things, whether it be spirits or anything, you're bringing it closer to you, and you don't want to do that. So So I was forced as a young man to that's when I kind of started doing my own research, trying to figure out what the heck it was I saw. And that's really what started my paranormal career, was that whole Bigfoot experience here in West Virginia. And then over the years, I've talked to so many other people and, experienced something similar. Some people got big sticks thrown at them. And as I got older, I kind of realized it wasn't like it was trying to hurt us. It was just telling us, hey, this is my area. Get out of here.
Yeah. He was trying to mess your fishing. He was trying to mess up your fishing.
Yeah, and we caught a lot of fish. We caught a lot of fish, man. We ate like champs. Grandma sent like these fried potatoes and cornbread, man. We were just loving it, and then this crazy experience happened. So I never talked about it. And even though I was actively open in the public about investigating the paranormal and everything, I never told that story on none of these radio shows or podcasts until after he died, because I made a promise to him. And I would always get the question, what started you in this? And well, I'd tell another ghost story that happened to me. And then I finally came out with it. And, I wrote it in my book first, and then I came out with it. But there's a funny kicker to this story, because I never told anyone, but I wanted my uncle to know, because my grandpa had died. And I said, look, I got to tell this story because I get this question all the time. And people are like, well, how do you do Bigfoot and ghosts? Because they knew I was already investigating Bigfoots and whatnot, And I said, well, it's a long story, and I'd kind of brush them off. So I told my uncle, I said, look, I'm going to talk about this story that happened to me in Papaw, and and I want you to know before it goes public. And he started laughing. And he goes, oh, you talk about that monkey man you and Papaw saw in the woods that time. I'm like, what? And so here I kept it quiet all these years.
And he told it.
But my grandpa told my uncle, and he said it kind of made sense, because he said, oh, yeah, he came to me. He told me about that like 25 years ago. And I said, man, that's BS, because I held it secret all these years. And he said, he came to me one day and he said, I want to tell you about what happened to me and Dave down on the river, because in case something happens to me, I want someone else to know, about it. And it's important. And it really, he goes, it terrified both of us, and he always asked me about it, but I won't talk to him about it because I don't want him messing with that stuff, So that's how it was. Kind of a funny side note, that here my uncle knew all these years and I kept it quiet. But yeah, I wrote about it in my book, West Virginia Bigfoot, which in that book, it's got accounts from state troopers, doctors, lawyers, just like you were saying. So many people that are credible observers who have had this experience. They cannot explain what happened to them, and they want to know more, but they're scared to tell anyone because of who they are and what they stand to lose or to be ridiculed. So, I'm a big advocate for that people can feel safe. They can come into my store. They can share those experiences with me if they want. Yeah. And if they want me to tell it, I will. I'll leave their name out if they want that. If not, I'll put their name in it. And you would be surprised how many people feel so relieved that they've held this experience in for 30 years or 20 years, and they finally get to share it with someone who's like-minded and understands that's not going to ridicule them and not going to persecute them, So,
absolutely.
And that's what I love about it.
And it's kind of leads me in. We got about 10 minutes left here before we say goodnight. And I wanted to ask you about that, people not coming forward, because you were in law enforcement, you're in the military. And obviously, they did a show not long ago, Paranormal 911, where we're talking about first responders. And you see this with pilots a lot. You see it with police. Now, listen, in my town, because, I live in a town of about 15,000 people, right? On the ocean here, and it's not a big town, seafront town. But every once in a while, you'll get the cops who'll come up to you. It's always the same. It's like, you're into this ghost thing, right? I said, yeah, I'm into the ghost thing. And they will tell me about calls that they've had. And I've had cops down at Cape Cod and a lot of different places who don't want to go on the record, and I understand why.
Yeah, of course.
But they will come and say, I responded to a call, and one in particular where somebody, real short story, went in a house, female cop, male cop. Female cop goes in, male cop says, I'm going to circle the house while you go in, because an alarm went off. And it went to the police station. They responded. They had access. So she goes in, and of course the male cop is just circling on the outside. So she goes in, hears some commotion upstairs, draws her service weapon at one point, just kind of holds it down, identifies herself, So she starts to go up the stairs, and then the noises get worse. The male cop comes in the house. The microwave oven goes on, and he sees a rocking chair going off by itself, grabs her and says, "That's it. I'm done. We're out of here." So we lost Dave again right now. That's okay.
We scared him. That scared him. No.
Yeah, that scared somebody, but we'll see if we get
That is
Dave
amazing.
back.
I
But
wonder how
first
often that
responders,
happens.
a lot of times, they have some stories where, people literally have called them for these things because they call them
They're
for these
afraid.
ladies back.
It's just, every time you start talking, kid, this crazy electronic
I
interference.
know it.
It's me. It's me. But anyway, yeah. So the male cop goes in, and the rocking chair's going. He grabs the other cop, says, "I'm done. I'm out of here." But you get a lot of stories like that, and I've had people who have wanted me to go to their house, and check things out, that have literally called 911 to literally tell them I have a ghost in my house. And it's just kind of like, there are better ways to get attention than calling your local police and saying I have a ghost in my house. But they didn't know where the hell to go, who the hell to talk to. They just wanted out. You can think of a better story than that, but sometimes police, and they say, well, I just wanted to tell you this. I don't want it to go any further, but maybe it's just kind of unburdening themselves by it. To somebody that will actually listen to them and not think that they're crazy or making something up. So I'm sure you've encountered that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, many of my friends, law enforcement buddies and stuff, they've told me some crazy experiences they've had. Cop cars turning on and off, like the lights, and nobody's in the car's locked shut, all kind of crazy stuff, and they're like, man, I'm out of here, So I'll tell you a quick funny story that happened to me in Italy when I was in the military. I had these two buddies that were big time, they were big old dudes, man, muscle bound military police guys, and they were like, I want to go on an investigation with you. I want to go on an investigation. I said, all right. So I found this 1500s monastery in Italy that was right down from our base, and we got full access to it. I took them in there. And this is so funny. And these are, these guys aren't scared of nothing, right? We've been in battles together and stuff. We're in Kosovo together. And so we get going through this monastery, and there's a lot of satanic activity in this place, because there's all kind of, whether it's real or not, could be kids messing around with upside down pentagram painted on the place. So we're standing there, it's dead quiet, and one of the guys goes, "You guys hear that? You hear that?" And I said, "What, that chanting sound I'm hearing?" He goes, "Yeah." And we all actively heard this weird, real low chanting and stuff. And then we heard a couple of weird noises, and I turn around and look, and both of them are gone.
That's enough.
They beat feet out of there, and I mean, within a minute, we didn't last 2 minutes in there. They were gone. They left me in there by myself. So
we're gonna be wrapping up here shortly. So before we go, of course, Dave, I'll give you an opportunity to tell everybody what's next for you, what you got going on, if you have any appearances or anything coming up. Let us know where they can find you.
Well, there's always stuff brewing. I've been in talks with a couple of production companies over some shows and whatnot, but whether those pan out or not, if they meet what I want to do, then I'll do them. If not, no. But got the big West Virginia Monster Con here in Richwood coming up this weekend. If you can make it, come on down. We got some great guest speakers. Check out my website. He's got it going across the screen there right now. You can get access to my books, see the shows I have been on, and some of the documentary movies I've been in, and just all kinds of stuff. Got some new books coming out soon this year. I told Ken, the West Virginia Dogman will be coming out later this year. I got my revised West Virginia UFO book coming out in about 3 weeks. It'll be out. Volumes 1 and 2 of my West Virginia Haunted series will be out later this year. And just, loving it, doing the store, and got some really cool events coming. Johnny's probably going to come down for a night with John Zappa sometime this year. And just a lot of cool stuff going on. A lot of fun stuff, too.
I can't wait to get down there, buddy.
Yeah, exactly what he said today. So
I know it. So, David, by all means, please come back. Let's not do this 10 years.
yeah, man. I meant to say in the very beginning, I was so glad you guys brought this show back because, years ago I was on it quite often with George and and you were on there with us a bunch of times.
Once
And
in a while.
we used to have fun with it, and it was always a fun show. And your guys' commercials are on here are awesome, by the way.
Well,
So-
we
They are.
got faces made for radio, but here we are. And Renee
Yeah.
Barnett, Friday, tell everybody one more time who your guest is.
My guest is going to be master astrologer Matt Gleason. He's very entertaining and he's very, very good at what he does. So we're going to take a look at the world situation.
Okay.
But Dave, you've got to come on my show sometime.
Sure, anytime. Let me know, guys.
I'll be
I'm always
twisting your arm.
I love doing the good shows, man. It's a lot of fun. I like to have fun and talk about all this stuff. We can do it all night.
Yep. Well,
Sounds
by
great.
popular demand, everybody in chat wants you back, and I want you
Ooh.
back anyway.
Yes,
And,
they
you know,
do. Everybody's saying the same thing.
So, Dave, we will stay in touch, my friend, and also the new show on Dead Air Full Spectrum. Maybe I think you'd be a good guest for those guys.
Ooh,
Love
yeah.
to.
We'll definitely talk to Chris and to Ron on that. So, ladies and gentlemen, next week got another great show for you. We're going to surprise you with our guest if it all works out. But thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you to Dave. Thank you to Renee. I love you,
Thank
sweetheart,
you.
for filling in. Everybody stay spooky this week. Have a great week.